I was reminded, I almost forgot to ask you about microbiome testing. This is something that I've seen your work on and investigation into. Talk to the listener a little bit about microbiome testing, and what can we learn about that?
Sure. So when I got into the raw foods diet, the microbiome was not really even discovered yet, actually, so which is kind of crazy. And so this is relatively a new thing. So consequently, if I got into raw foods and the microbiome was not discovered, everybody that had come before me had not known about the
Okay.
microbiome either. And all the raw food books and raw food information did not consider the microbiome when they formed their teachings. And I think
Well,
this is a really
all the natural hygiene and all that going back.
did not consider the microbiome because it was not discovered yet. Nobody even knew about it. So, what I believe, my personal belief, is that with the information they had, natural hygiene and, the raw foods diet made a lot of sense. I'm not going to disagree with that. But now, hey, let's take some of the new information in and let's kind of modify what we're doing and see, hey, is the raw food diet optimal for the microbiome? And I'm not going to say it is not. I'm going to say in my case, it definitely was not. I mean, I believe that like the raw food diet is the best. And I'm like, when I got my first microbiome test, I sent it in. I'm like, yeah, mine's going to kick ass. I'm raw vegan. Screw everybody else. I'm kicking ass because I got the best diet. This is what we're supposed to eat. And I got my test results back and it wasn't. It wasn't
Wow.
where I would like it to be, or where I thought it should be. Meanwhile, I will say that I have had raw food friends that have also sent in their tests, and some of them have gotten near perfect scores.
Huh.
So this is very variable. It depends on the person, depends on if they're breastfed, if they're vaginally birthed, their environment, if they get enough sleep, their exercise amount, and of course also what we eat, right? I really would love to see more microbiome tests by 100% fruitarians and people that eat a very high fruit diet without a lot of vegetables. My personal opinion is that, they're not going to be the best results, but maybe I'll be surprised because, I mean, the experts in the microbiome space and published studies say we want to eat 30 different kinds of plant foods, and every different kind of plant food has different kinds of fibers and phytonutrients that feed our microbiome differently. So
Hmm.
that's really kind of the rabbit hole that I've been running down into recently because I want to optimize my microbiome because I don't want to like live a raw food diet. I mean, the reason why I do a raw food diet is not just to say I'm raw, is because I thought it was the healthiest diet. And when I learned that
Right.
maybe it isn't the healthiest diet, maybe I need to do something a bit differently. I'm not going to stick on this raw food ship that, in my opinion, is not necessarily sinking, but is not the best for me. And now maybe it is for some people. I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say for me and my body, my microbiome, it wasn't where I want it to be. So that's why I've made some changes. So I think that people should get a microbiome test. Now I'll say the science is not perfect yet. They don't know everything, but there's a few commonalities when you get a microbiome test, which is about $100. You send it in, and they basically analyze your poop for the different microbes in there or the metabolites. So then you could kind of get a picture of what bacteria is in your gut, and they have determined that in general, the greater diversity of the commensal and the beneficial bacteria in your gut, the more resilience you will have and the better health outcome you will have.
Wow.
They don't know all the different levels of each one should be exactly, but generally, greater diversity means better health outcomes. So, for example, I've had raw vegan friends that die of pneumonia. Now, I'm not going to say if they had a better microbiome, could they have not gotten the not get the pneumonia and have died? And I
Hmm.
would say yes, because there are studies that show, certain bacteria in a microbiome can help you prevent you from getting pneumonia. I mean, another raw vegan I know lost his life from sepsis. Once
Wow.
again, there's studies showing that there's microbes in your gut that can help prevent you from getting sepsis, right? I mean, clearly, I have a video where I talk about the Cermycetes boulardii, which when cholera was going around in Asia years ago, people that had the Cermycetes boulardii did not get the cholera disease, right? I mean, this was observed and proven in science. And
Hmm.
so, like, I make a fermented drink out of pasteurized fruit juice with the Cermycetes boulardii, but then I turn it into ferment to basically drastically reduce the sugar because the bacteria's eaten. The bacteria count just explodes, it's a little bit bubbly and carbonated, maybe a tiny bit alcoholic, and then I drink it. So now I'm getting this bacteria in me that has been shown to be preventative against the cholera disease and what other diseases, and is it going to help against E. coli, which actually studies show that it can. So then you be less prone to getting E. coli if you're eating cantaloupes that are conventionally grown on, manure that has E. coli contamination. I mean, and it's like these kind of more deep thinking that, of course, a lot of the raw vegan dogma they'll never talk about. I mean, once again, I'm doing this for my health. My life is dedicated to looking up studies, making myself crazy, creating content to share what I'm learning. If people want to listen or even care, or they just think I'm some raw food kook, I think I'm doing this a very pragmatic way personally because I want to, I'm doing this for my health because once again, I mean, as sad as it is to say, at some point, I'm still here to ensure I don't end up in the hospital again.
Wow. Wow. So, John, do you have a video where you go into detail about the microbiome testing, where to get it, how to do it?
Absolutely. So I have a video where I show how
We'll
to
link
do
to it.
it,
We'll link to it on
and
there.
then I actually share my microbiome results. So I get it's basically a company I use called Ombre. Now there's other companies out there, and I use some other companies, but Ombre is a good starting point for most people because they'll give you that you could download your data, and then you could upload it to another company called Biome Site in the UK, which then will analyze the data significantly better than Ombre would. And you could be able to see like your short chain fatty acid production, for example. You could see if you're producing enough dopamine. It's very, very interesting
Eh,
data that you could get from that. And they'll make dietary suggestions, some of which I probably would not take, but some of them you might want to take. I mean, the other thing that we learned about the microbiome, because still there's so much that's not learned yet. Number one is we want to have diversity. And the only way to one of the ways to get diversity is increase the diversity of the foods you're eating because every different food you're eating is going to feed different bacteria. Number one. Number two, the other thing we know is that there are keystone foundational species in our gut microbiome, and we want to have those keystone species in place because, and it's like your gut microbiome is like an ecosystem. It's like a forest, right? And like in the forest, there's all different kinds of creatures. This little creature eats this creature, eats this creature, and if you get too many foxes, right, then the whole system's like out of balance. So we really want to balance our microbiome. And I'm not the microbiome expert, but what I'll say is that if you I think for example, eating too much fruit will imbalance your microbiome. The other thing I'll say is that I've seen some of my close friends, they've gotten microbiome tests, long-term raw fooders, not short-term raw fooders. I'm talking like 25 plus years. And some of their microbiome tests were maybe a little bit not as good as mine or maybe a little bit better than mine, but they still weren't where I believe they should be.
hmm.
So, and
Wow.
so I don't. I mean, I wish they did a study. I hope somebody does a study with raw vegan microbiomes and then how to get them to dial in right. I think that my personal opinion is, at present time, a lot of the raw vegans can make enough acetate and propionate, but we're not making enough butyrate, which is, I mean, that's a whole different topic.
Hmm.
But and so like I'm trying to eat foods and increase my butyrate production because that's actually very critical for like, gut permeability and some other things. But yeah.
Okay. And
I have a video down
what's the
below where I
title?
go into this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. What's the title of that video? And we'll post it here below as well.
I don't know, just
Or
just go on YouTube and do raw vegan microbiome and my video will come up.
okay, we'll post it in the below work. John Kohler, it's from his OK Raw YouTube channel.